Good evening, Chicago, and welcome into Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos. Happy Saturday. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. The Chicago Bears are 4-2, and we are going to break down how we got here and where we're going in this next hour, so stick around. Let's get to our episode. Sports Talk Chicago, we're in a good place, sports fans. The Chicago Bears are 4-2 after picking up a victory in London over the Jacksonville Jaguars 35-16. They're now on a bye week. They get a chance to rest up, heal up, and look forward as the optimism continues to build in the city of Chicago. Man, we've come a long way over the last month, haven't we, Bears fans? As we started the year, as I've mentioned on this show before, in the offseason, I think that there was plenty of optimism. I think Bears fans were ready to be unleashed and have some fun this season. Well, the first couple of weeks didn't work out exactly according to plan. Chicago Bears go 1-2 in that stretch. Caleb Williams has his issues. The offensive line looks terrible. What is DeAndre Swift doing with the vision? Can we get the ball to DJ Moore? Where is Keenan Allen? And why is Gerald Everett playing more than Cole Kmet? Well, let's flip the script and look back over the last 3 weeks. The Chicago Bears have won 3 games in a row. They're on a winning streak, ladies and gentlemen. It's finally happened in the Matt Eberflus era. And things are getting fun again. I think we're back to where we were feeling in the offseason. Chicago Bears are 4-2, taking down the Jaguars 35-16, pounding another team just like the Carolina Panthers. And we're going to get into the NFC North, the schedule, the soft opponents, the bad defenses, whatever counter or zag you want to throw at this 4-2 Chicago Bears football team right now. That's fine. Go for it. Some of it is very fair. But you can't take away the fact that they're 4-2 right now in the division. There's only so many teams with this many wins in the NFL. The Chicago Bears are one of them. It's progress, and it's putting ourselves in a good position. For those of you that want to clap back at, man, the Jacksonville Jaguars are terrible, keep in mind, Chicago Bears had to go to London in this game. They walked into it on Saturday, 1.5-point favorites. They walked into it on Sunday, 1.5-point underdogs. And I don't care what you say. Vegas knows a thing or two about spreads. Sure, maybe they're trying to drag the money to the other side, but how much can you drag it when they become a full 1.5-point underdog? The Bears went in there, they took care of business, and they did it in convincing fashion with the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. I'm not going to take away points from the Chicago Bears because they're winning games. I can't do it. We have just spent, if you go back to the last head coach in this town, what was one of the gripes or the narratives that we put out there about Matt Nagy? That his teams consistently played down to their competition. We were 8-8, sure, but did it feel good sometimes, Bears fans? No, it did not. For every time the Chicago Bears picked up a huge win, or for every time we lit up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Mitch and his 6 touchdowns, there was also that moment when we were getting trounced by the Saints. Matt Nagy's teams played down to the competition. This Bears iteration to this point has not only raised its level of play to meet that competition, but in the last 2 weeks with the Panthers and the Jaguars, they're taking care of business in a convincing way. It's a good sign. Yes, the opponents are going to get tougher as the weeks move on. But what's important right now is that your Chicago Bears are creating a baseline of expectation that on a week-to-week basis, we're starting to feel like that this team possibly can compete with almost any team in the NFL. The story is yet to be written. I completely understand. But man, the signs are pointing in the right direction. For all of you pumping in, maybe getting in the YouTube comments, or maybe watching or listening in your car right now, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are driving your car, make sure you drive home safe. Get home, go to YouTube, subscribe to Sports Talk Chicago. But I can't necessarily, I've heard the comments already that, well, the Chicago Bears, when they play the NFC North, all right, we got to slow down a little bit there. There's still 3 games on this schedule after the bye week that we have to take care of before we get to that gauntlet to finish the season. And trust me, Bears fans, if you haven't looked at it, it is a gauntlet. After the bye week, the Chicago Bears play the Washington Commanders, which has now been flexed to the afternoon primetime game with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams. Check on in on the show next week. We're going to do a full preview on that one. After that week, we go to Arizona. At this point, I honestly can't tell you which team is going to show up when we talk about the Arizona Cardinals. They've beaten good teams. They've lost to bad teams. They've played poorly. They've played well. Marvin Harrison currently in concussion protocol right now. Kyler Murray's been a little up and down. It's a winnable game, but I don't know quite how to feel about it yet. I'm kind of going a little bit 1 week at a time still. As most of you, I hope that you are. If not, go for it. And then finally, out of that 3-game stretch, they play the New England Patriots, who are one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. When you look at the schedule, that is a team the Chicago Bears should beat. So out of those next 3 games, my expectation at this time is at least 2-1. If they go 3-0, which honestly, in the preseason, I had them going 3-0 in this stretch. I had the Chicago Bears going 7-2 as they entered into this NFC North, NFC West gauntlet. And then I had them losing some games, some trials, some tribulations, some valleys right after the peak. And then I did have them winning double-digit games. It's all baked into how I feel about Caleb Williams, his season, our expectations. I think there's going to be high moments. I think we're in them right now. I don't know if we're at the peak. We'll see. Hopefully not. But I also think there's going to be some rough moments, some tougher opponents. Those are all coming in the second half of the season. So get it while the getting's good right now. Chicago Bears can go 2-1. They move to 6-3. They go 3 in a row, and they win 6 in a row at this point. They're going to be 7-2. Heading into a final schedule, folks, that is going to have the Chicago Bears playing each NFC North team, the Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay Packers, and Detroit Lions twice, the Seattle Seahawks at home, and the San Francisco 49ers on the road. Not an easy schedule. As it stands today, the NFC North combined is 17-5. It's the best division in football. Record-wise, no one can dispute that. We can have the conversation about it competitively, but right now, every single team is showing up. Minnesota, the biggest surprise, obviously, at the top at 5-0. So for the Chicago Bears, they've put themselves in a good position right now in a really good division. If they were 3-3 right now, they honestly might already be up the track in this division, but they're not. They're 4-2 heading into the bye week, hoping to heal up, and then they come back and take on a very surprising Washington Commanders team, who offensively, with rookie Jaden Daniels, has looked great thus far. But keep in mind, another great matchup for Caleb Williams in this offense. Washington's defense, it ain't very good. And Caleb will have another opportunity to have a great performance. Speaking of Caleb Williams, let's talk about him. He continues to impress every single week. I'm not alone. I'm trying to hold back on the hyperbole because we're not there yet. I don't want to put too much on the 21-year-old rookie who's only had 6 NFL starts. But I definitely feel like we've got a good one. And he's impressed. I had expectations. We all did. Maybe your expectations were in these arbitrary, ethereal numbers. We'll see where it lands at the end of the season. But to this point, man, everything has been impressive. The dude is winning from the pocket. I ran a stat last week about how many times the past 2 quarterbacks in town posted games of 69% completion percentage or above, 300 passing yards and above, and multiple scores. Mitch Trubisky in 51 starts with the Chicago Bears only did it 4 times. Justin Fields only did it once, and it took 30 starts to get there against the Denver Broncos. Caleb Williams, 6 NFL starts, now has that mark twice. 23-29. 226 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Interception, perfect, classic rookie moment. Had DJ Moore wide open. And again, we've seen with the deep ball with Caleb, it's still a work in progress. This time, as opposed to other occasions, in the past, I think he's been putting too much on the football. He's been putting it too far out there. I think he's been missing his receivers 4 or 5 yards down the field on overthrows. This one, unfortunately, was an underthrow. He's still working on finding that happy medium, people. It's 6 NFL starts. He's 21 years old. But the most impressive part about it was that after the interception, Caleb Williams went 17 for 21 on his passes and led 4 touchdown drives consecutively. Everyone's making a big deal, as they should. Cole Kmet caught 2 touchdown passes. The Chicago Bears lost their long snapper, Scott Daly, in the middle of the game. The emergency snapper was Cole Kmet. He was terrified. He said it was his biggest fear heading into a game. And now all of a sudden he's the long snapper. Well, Cole Kmet, all you had to do was long snap on the extra points because the Chicago Bears did not punt again in that game. Torrey Taylor, take the half off. And a lot of it comes down to the synchronicity of what's happening with Caleb Williams in this offense. So let's just stay with Caleb just for a second. What I'm liking, what I'm loving. The anticipation is something that we just simply haven't seen. And we just start to have to maybe give ourselves a piece of that humble pie. I know that I've always felt this type of hubris that in Chicago, we've watched other great quarterbacks and other great teams. We've never watched a great quarterback with a C on his helmet wearing a Bears uniform. So there was always been a part of me that thinks, man, do I even really know what great quarterback looks like? I've seen it objectively on other teams, but I've never seen it on my own team before. And again, I'm not even really willing to say that I'm seeing greatness now. I think I'm just seeing actual competent quarterback play. Anticipation, throwing the ball before a guy even turns around, throwing it to a perfect spot, staying in the pocket. And then my favorite part, the progression with his eyes. There was a moment in that game where they did a slow-mo of Caleb in the pocket, and you can see his eyes begin on the left, move to the middle, and then move to the other side. Ball came out. I promise you, we did not see that from Justin Fields. I promise you, we did not see that from Mitch Trubisky. I can guarantee you we did not see that from Mike Glennon. And I'm pretty positive in most moments we did not see that from Jay Cutler. We're seeing that right now from our 21-year-old quarterback in his 6th NFL game. You know what it reminded me of? And I'm going to give myself a little credit here. Caleb in the pocket with that slow motion, the way his eyes were, that's how I was in 1999 at a Blockbuster Video. If you guys care, you're like, hey, Joey, how were you in a Blockbuster Video? I'm telling you, that's how I was. I was reading my progressions. I was going one step at a time. I was staying in the pocket, but also at the same time, I had anticipation. Ooh, the horror section over here. Ah, new releases over there. I had those instincts. Those were my eyes at Blockbuster back in the day, and I'm telling you, I could rack up a 5-video selection to bring up to the counter like nobody's business. Shout out to the movie Phantoms. It's Halloween season. I'm going to do it. But that's what you're seeing with Caleb. Little things every single week. Little things, and then also big things too as well. Big thing. How about that throw to Keenan Allen? Unbelievable. Now, of course, he had the second one in the corner. That's a little fade into the back of the end zone there. They work on that play all the time. That should be bread and butter between him and Keenan Allen. Again, perfect throw, perfect catch. Makes sense. That's why we traded for him. But the one in the middle of the field where he threw it in one spot and Keenan Allen with great body control actually turns his body to the other side, was able to adjust, spin, and pick up an absolute laser of a pass. It's great stuff. I don't even need to be a quarterback guru to say, man, that is an absolute incredible throw. And the type of throw that Chicago Bears fans haven't seen in a long time. They were 4 for 4 in the red zone. We did not have that luxury with the past 2 quarterbacks in this town. He's spreading the ball around. It's not just Allen Robinson or bust. It's not just DJ Moore or bust. I love DJ Moore. But we've seen him have huge games. We've seen Rome Odunze have a huge game. And now we're seeing Cole Kmet have a huge game. We're seeing Keenan Allen catch a couple touchdowns. It's somebody different every single week. And if you listen to the greats like Tom Brady, or if you listen to someone like Kurt Warner, they're always going to tell you that it isn't about force feeding the ball into the hands of great receivers. It's about going where the play dictates. And of course, great receivers are going to get open, so they get their fair share. But I think Caleb isn't playing favorites right now. I think he's just playing the play. And that's important. I think we've had quarterbacks in this town that have played favorites as safety blankets and maybe forced some balls in there that maybe the receiver came in and made a great catch. But was it exactly high-level offensive football? I'm not so sure. I'm not saying this is an elite offense with the Chicago Bears right now, but we're getting there, people. Slowly but surely, we are getting there. And cheers to Keenan Allen on his breakout game. It was great to see. Now, a lot of people, I've said it on this show, but I think a lot of people are probably expecting too much from Keenan Allen this season. I'm not saying 32 is ancient, but I also know Keenan Allen from years past. Look, he's had a lot of really healthy years. He's also had a lot of years where he's been a walking questionable before games. He's missed time. That's part of Keenan Allen's career, in my opinion. He's not going to play you a full slate of 17. And what we got excited about heading into the offseason was when you put Keenan Allen with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, that means we don't need Keenan Allen to show up every single week. Personally, my expectation was, Keenan, can you give us 10 games? And I wasn't even looking at it from a perspective of receptions and yards. I was looking at it from a perspective of touchdowns. He's got 2 on the board right now. He honestly should have a third one. He dropped that one in week 1 against the Titans. But Keenan Allen right now is a type of guy that I just think needs to be that ace in the hole, that X factor. If you're telling me at the end of this year, Keenan Allen gives you 6 to 8 touchdowns, I don't care what the receptions and yards are. I really don't. I want him to be a red zone monster. I want him to be that third down choice for Caleb Williams moving forward. I don't need him to catch 10 receptions for 150 yards every single week. That's just my expectation. And I think Keenan Allen, the way they utilized him in this game as a guy who, oh man, we can't stop Cole Kmet. We can't stop DeAndre Swift. They're throwing the ball to DJ Moore. And oh yeah, we also can't stop Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. Overwhelmed. I think that's what we want to try and implement and impose our will upon the opposition. And in this game too, as well, props to Caleb Williams. He was able to use his athleticism and his legs. Now, let me get something very, very, very straight and clear here. I'm happy he got those rushing yards. I'm happy he has the athletic ability to be able to make that happen. But I've had a come to Jesus moment on this one. I like my quarterbacks in the pocket. I'm sorry. You know, Jaden Daniels, good for you. Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP, not going to take it away from you. Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I think, is one of the few that does it a nice complement of both. But, man, Caleb, I just want the dude to throw from the pocket. That's what I want now. I want a pocket passer, dual threat. I'm sure it's cool. I'm sure it's great. I want my quarterback healthy. I want him upright. I don't want him taking crazy hits. So to see Caleb, utilize his speed on the edge a little bit and have a great moment in the middle of the game where he was able to slide up and then run the ball all the way up to the 50-yard line, great. Him lowering his shoulder to try and get in the end zone, I appreciate it. I'm sure his teammates do as well. But I got to be honest, I don't want to see it. I'm holding Caleb like a precious pearl, and I want him to be as healthy as possible. So that was nice to see. Another thing that was really nice to see, and this is another marker, and when I talk about baseline of expectation, what can we expect from the Chicago Bears team on a week-to-week basis? They're getting to the point where it's getting close, where I think the Chicago Bears, every time they step on the field on Sunday, they got a great chance to win a football game against anybody right now. They're not there yet, but we're slowly building a baseline of expectation, a consistency of, man, I think every single week the Bears got a shot. I thought this was a huge moment in the second half. Chicago Bears were up 21-3, and Jacksonville, to their credit, they came down, got together a pretty nice drive, and they scored, made it 21-10. Now, past Eberflus teams, 21-10, 2 scores, honestly would start to terrify me. We've blown a lot of those leads. We blew 3 of them last year. And when I saw 21-10, there's a part of me that went, uh-oh. Because all it takes is for the offense to stall. Maybe they kick another field goal. Now they're only down 1 score. And then, or maybe they score a touchdown 21-17. Now maybe they got the ball. It's 5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. If they score, we lose. All this other stuff, all these things, these traumas, these triggers running through my mind. So they go 21-10. Chicago Bears get the ball back. Now, much to our advantage, the Jacksonville Jaguars aren't great defensively. And when I say not great defensively, you can also say the Chicago Bears offensively are so talented that they had themselves a little problem with the penalties on this drive. I believe it was 3 defensive holding penalties off. There were 2 sacks in that drive, but those defensive holding penalties turned into first downs for the Chicago Bears. Great news. But what I love to see on this drive, DeAndre Swift was a monster. And the offensive line showed up on this particular drive. DeAndre Swift totaled 54 yards on this drive. And this was the one that was the 3-yard dime to Keenan Allen in the corner in the left end zone. And just to come down like that and put a score on the board, make it 28-10. Oh, you answered, we answered back. You punched, we punched back. Good sign for the Chicago Bears offense. Good sign for Shane Waldron, too, as well, who I think has had a lot of resiliency in these last 2 or 3 weeks. It's tough to see as a fan sometimes when you're watching these games and you say to yourself, Shane Waldron, how do you not know your personnel? Well, maybe there's a human element in here, and it's taking some time. Shane Waldron with the Seattle Seahawks, I guess, doesn't do first 15 scripted plays. I don't get it. It seems like a bit of a norm. It seems like a prerequisite on the offensive side of the ball. But then the leadership council at Mercedes-Lewis came to them and said, no, we want that first 15. Let's start implementing that. We've seen that a little bit more. Caleb Williams, I want to get in the flow. I want to play tempo. I mentioned that weeks ago. They do it at least multiple times a game. A no huddle. Get up there. Let's hike the ball. Let's stay in rhythm. Let's attack the defense while they're on their heels. No substitutions. No crazy exotic mixed coverages or pre-snap motion from the defense. Let's get out there and let's play. They've been doing that. And they've dialed up some great run fits. And the offensive line at times is executing better than they were 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's important. I'm not saying, well, in this next segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about the offensive line a little bit more. It's not going to be perfect. I don't think they're going to be elite. I highly doubt they're going to creep into the top 10. I think most metrics right now have the Chicago Bears offensive line anywhere between 23 to 25 in the NFL right now. So can you somehow maybe get into the teens? Can you get to the 15 to 18 mark? I mean, I think that would be quite the accomplishment for this offensive line. There's still major problems on that unit, but we are seeing some moments where they're giving themselves some opportunities. And credit again, every single week. I'll keep doing it because I was critical of him. DeAndre Swift continues to run with vision, with smarts. He's cutting fantastic. He's seeing the holes, and we're seeing his speed take place out in space now. And it's becoming a factor. They're getting a little bit of that slip screen game going. They're getting some of the outside zone run. And then also they're doing a pretty good job of making up some holes, and he's cutting back counter side and running the ball up the field. These are all great things to see. So for the Chicago Bears right now, as you're assessing it heading into the bye week, I don't know how else you can feel but pretty good about where we're at. Long way to go. This is a long stretch. We got 11 of these games left to go. We're not even halfway through the season. So don't get too far ahead of ourselves, but live in the moment and acknowledge right now that your 21-year-old rookie quarterback, 6 NFL games in his season right now, is getting better every single week and starting to be the reason why you win games. You got a running back right now who's bounced back from a rough start, and he's running the ball hard. You got wide receivers taking turns making plays. You got a tight end right now that is not only just a great blocker, but he's also making plays and scoring touchdowns in the passing game. An offensive line that continues to get a little bit better, and an opportunistic defense that continues to cause turnovers. A defensive line that is solid but not great, and a secondary that even when they have injuries, they are deep. And the guys that are showing up like a Josh Blackwell is making plays. These are all good signs right now. The arrow is pointing up, and they get a chance to heal up now and then take on the Washington Commanders in a primetime afternoon game with Tony Romo and Jim Nantz on the call. And I think we get a little bit maybe of the first of several litmus tests for this Bears team heading into what's going to be an incredibly interesting, incredibly entertaining, and hopefully a very fruitful, positive, and victorious Chicago Bears second half. We're coming back here on Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos. You're listening to WLS AM 890. Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday, beautiful fall Saturday. We got a little bit of chilly weather, warmed up a couple of bit. Let's see how long that warm weather sticks around, because I think it might be the beginning of the end. Winter is on the way. But the good news is the Chicago Bears are going to keep you warm, hopefully, throughout the rest of this winter. They're 4-2 right now. They're in their bye week. They get this week off, and then they begin preparation for the Washington Commanders next week. Make sure you tune into the show next Saturday. I'll have a wonderful preview getting you ready for that action, because that matchup is suddenly incredibly interesting, and the NFL is taking notice by putting it into the primetime matchup, that 3:25 slot with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on CBS next Sunday. So when the bye week happens, you kind of do a little bit of an inventory, right? You assess. And the thing that I want to start looking at just a little bit. Now, this is all, some of it might be a little pie in the sky, might be a little hypothetical. But as a Bears fan, it's fun to think about and it's fun to talk about. If you're watching us on YouTube, please comment and question below what you would like the Chicago Bears to do, because we're about to enter trade season. You're seeing it across the NFL right now. New York Jets made a move. Went and got Devontae Adams and paired him back together with Aaron Rodgers. You saw Cam Akers moving back to the Vikings. And then you also saw the Cleveland Browns, what I think is going to be the beginning of a purge for them, trading Amari Cooper, their wide receiver, to the Buffalo Bills. So trade season is upon us. And what does General Manager Ryan Poles like to do? Well, the last 2 years, the guy is very active at the trade deadline. So this isn't just an exercise in fantasy. This is more of an exercise in preparation for the possibility that Ryan Poles, our general manager, typically likes to be very active around this time of year. Let's start first with what I think is unfortunately going to be a non-starter. I think the biggest concern on the Chicago Bears right now is probably our interior offensive line. So you say to yourself, can we go out there and can we improve it? Is there somebody out there that we can get and plug and play and immediately get better at that position? Unfortunately, I think the answer to that is probably no at this time. Now, when I say no, I don't think you're going out right now and picking up a legit quality starter from a team. A left guard, a right guard, even a tackle. Could you make a move possibly for one of their swing guys, or maybe someone who's a backup piece to maybe fortify your depth a little bit? We'll see what happens. I think the Chicago Bears are definitely banking on Larry Borom and Ryan Bates to come back into the fold in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see what happens. I think Matt Pryor has done fine at the right guard position, definitely better than Nate Davis. So it's hard to assess a little bit that Nate Davis has been so poor at his position. When Matt Pryor comes in, he looks like a borderline revelation. So I think they're going to wait on that position. I looked across the NFL. You know, when you try and pull up the rankings of the top left guards, centers, and right guards in the NFL, when you try and look up the top rankings of all the offensive lines across the NFL, and just go through the top 15, a lot of these teams still have high hopes for their season. A lot of these teams think, hope, and want to be playoff bound. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to go to the Buffalo Bills right now or the Pittsburgh Steelers or name any team and say, hey, can you just give us your starting right guard? It just doesn't work like that. There's a couple situations maybe the Miami Dolphins would think about, like a Liam Eichenberg or something at right guard. But here's the problem. Liam Eichenberg was a center. They moved him off the position. He's been terrible at right guard. Is that even a player that you want to talk about and bring in? A lot of these teams just aren't going to budge from that side of the ball right now. And I'm just not in the mood to trade for an interior offensive lineman on a group that's probably ranked closer to where the Chicago Bears are right now, because those other teams are up the track. I'm not looking to make a trade for trade's sake. The one that I looked at, and I just want to throw one out there just for funsies, and I don't even know if this makes this much better for the Chicago Bears, and I think by the time I end up explaining it, you're probably going to go, no thanks. But if you're going to pick at the carcass of the Cleveland Browns, which it looks like over the coming weeks the NFL is about to do, they do have a guard, a veteran savvy guard who grades out well, who's been a stalwart for them for a long time. Could probably come in and play either left guard or right guard right off the bat, is their player Joel Bitonio. He's been around for a little while. Grades out well. I think he could be one of the few moments where we could probably find an upgrade at that position. The only problem with that one, I think, is the money that's left out on his deal. So he's got 2 years left on his deal. He's got approximately $38 million left on said deal. Not terrible, but again, you're putting assets into something that A, is a little midstream, and keep in mind he's 32 years old right now. The problem that I probably have with that deal is that the next year, this next coming year, his cap hit is a certain number that I think is very palatable. But the cap hit in the final year of his deal, when he's going to be 34 years old, is $22 million. So you have to ask yourself, forget the draft compensation. Are we in a position right now to take a gamble on a player like that and then pay him $22 million in 2 years when we're 34 years old? I'm not ready to make grand proclamations about this Bears team this year. I definitely want to enjoy this year for what it is. This year definitely feels a little bit reminiscent of the Chicago Cubs in 2015, the Blackhawks in 2009, the Blackhawks who fought admirably against the Detroit Red Wings but fell short. What happened to them the next year? The Chicago Cubs who slayed the dragon of the St. Louis Cardinals, but then that following series got their butt kicked by the New York Mets. What did they do that following year? There's a little bit of that vibe with this team. I don't want to put a ceiling on it, and I also don't want to drag this team down. We don't know yet. We're 6 games in. There's a lot to go here. But if you're telling me in 2 years, would I rather be spending my money on something other than a 34-year-old left or right guard? That's probably what I want to do. So I don't think that's the move. The move is, if you really want to start pushing your chips in a little bit, is on that defensive line, and I think you go after the defensive end. There's 2 reasons for that. The first one is, the way it's shaping up right now, the Chicago Bears are most likely going to be picking in the second half of the first round of the NFL draft next year. They'll have the Carolina Panthers pick, which is looking to be very high, as in anywhere between 33 to 36 in the NFL draft, and then the Bears will have something in the 50 range. So they'll have probably 20-ish, 34-ish, and then 50-ish in next year's NFL draft. In my opinion, typically that is not the spot where you're going to find game-changing defensive ends. I think that's a great spot where you go in and then that's where you attack the offensive line, or that's where you attack to that nose tackle, that 3 technique, that defensive tackle that really ties the rug together for Matt Eberflus's defense, that he can play alongside and rotate and learn the ropes from a Gervon Dexter and an Andrew Billings and become the future in that particular area. And honestly, when we look at resources with those draft picks, that's probably what I would rather spend my money on. Now, what makes it great about this Carolina Panthers pick is that is a very, very juicy commodity. And you can utilize that one or your second round pick and still walk out of it feeling pretty good and have plenty of bullets for next year. this gives you flexibility to swing for a big move. So there are 3 defensive ends that I personally would want on my team. The first one and the obvious one is, again, you hear the buzzards? Let's go over to the carcass of the Cleveland Browns. People are going to be picking at the bones, right? We've heard this one a lot. I'm not making this one up for the first time. You've probably seen it in a bunch of different chats. But let's talk about the Chicago Bears possibly be interested in Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett has 4 sacks this year. Over his last 3 seasons, he's racked up 14 in 1 year, 16 in 1 year, 16 in 1 year. Dude's a good player. And there's a possibility that he could be rejuvenated, obviously, in a winning situation in Chicago, in a city that loves its defense, in a city that isn't named Cleveland. There's a bit of a problem with this one, though. You have to think about it from a Cleveland Browns perspective. I think we could probably get this deal done for one of those second-round picks. But there is some money left over on Myles Garrett's deal. Something that isn't probably prohibitive for the Chicago Bears. They could probably handle and absorb that money because that's the type of money that you would spend at a premium position. But if the Cleveland Browns did trade Myles Garrett, it would be a $56 million dead cap hit on the Browns next year just for trading him. Sure, maybe you could swallow that for a year. But where is it going for the Cleveland Browns on this one? They're going to have to make a move on Deshaun Watson. I don't think they want to say it publicly. They're going to keep playing him. Kevin Stefanski's going to say he's my guy. They're going to do whatever it takes. But eventually, at some point, I don't see a world where they're not eating at least $100 million off of that contract at some point. If it's not this year, next year at some point. So to get rid of Myles Garrett and do Deshaun Watson, that's just a lot of pain that you have to take onto your payroll in dead cap hit money. That maybe says to yourself, man, we're not going to compete for at least the next 3 years. That's how bad it is. That Deshaun Watson contract in Cleveland, outside of him turning around, which I don't see it happening, they're in a lot of trouble. It's not just talent on the field, but it's the finances and things that are tied up around it. So I just think it's going to be tough for the Bears to pry him open. And I don't even know if the Cleveland Browns would want to do that at this particular time. So let's move on to 2 other guys. This is not my number 1 guy, so I'm going to do him next. Trey Hendrickson on the Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, he has 5 sacks on the season. His pressure rate, his pressures on the quarterback and QB hits, among the league leaders in the NFL. This dude, when you talk about the cliches in the NFL about a dude with a motor, this is Trey Hendrickson for you. Bears fans, I promise you, if he was on the Bears, you would absolutely love him. Had 17.5 sacks last season, has 2 years left on his deal, and if he was traded right now, only a $7 million dead cap hit to the Cincinnati Bengals. 2 things about this one. The first one is Trey Hendrickson infamously held out during training camp, wanted new money, wanted a new deal, didn't get it done. Now is playing with the Cincinnati Bengals, but it really only looks like a matter of time before he changes helmets for a different franchise. Just because I don't think the Bengals are inclined to pay him because they have to pay Jamar Chase. They've already paid Joe Burrow. What do we do with T. Higgins? On and on and on. But it looks like that's coming towards a divorce between those 2 teams. So there could be some interest there. The only problem is I can't see necessarily a scenario unless, the Bengals really go in the tank over the next couple of weeks. If Joe Burrow, for whatever reason, misses time on the field. If Joe Burrow is healthy and under center, why are you trading one of your best defensive pieces? And what does that say to the quarterback you just gave a ton of money to? It's a weird look. Optically, I think the Cincinnati Bengals and their fans walked into this year thinking that not only they were going to compete for the playoffs, but maybe a dark horse for the Super Bowl. And then fast forward to the end of October, early November, and then you're trading Trey Hendrickson midstream. It seems tough. I don't know if I can wrap my head around it. The one that I really want, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll. And this one I think makes sense. And this I think we would love. And this I think could possibly change the complexion of the Chicago Bears. Not just for this year, but next year. You want to talk playoffs. You want to talk Super Bowl in your future. This one's got me super excited. I think the Chicago Bears need to make some phone calls and go after Max Crosby on the Las Vegas Raiders. That's right. They just traded Devontae Adams. So what are we doing here? What are we talking about? Max Crosby is a monster, and he's fun. he's got that edge. He's got a little bit of that Steve McMichael flair that Chicago Bears fans, we know and we love. He's got 5.5 sacks this season. He's got 27 over his previous 2 years. This dude is a monster, and this dude is a problem. And I'm telling you right now, if you match him up alongside Montez Sweat, one of the two or both of them at the same time, they're going to eat. Trading Max Crosby is only a $10 million dead cap hit for the Las Vegas Raiders. He's got approximately 2.5 years left on his deal. Probably going to cost the Chicago Bears about $60 million. Maybe there's a world where you'd be stepping in a little bit and he would want some sort of extension of some kind. But, man, I think this is the move. The Raiders are turning this thing over. They don't have a quarterback. They're going to be drafting a quarterback next year. And once that happens, that starts a clock of about 2 to 3 years for them to get back up to where they probably need to be. This is not the Chicago Bears situation. The Raiders are closer to what the Patriots are doing right now. They've got Drake May, and they're going to try to build up their roster around Drake May in the next 2 or 3 years. The Raiders need to start asking themselves a very serious question, that if they draft a new guy next year, that probably means Max Crosby is not a part of the future when that quarterback either is good or your team is good and you're back in the playoffs. Now might be the time to extract the best value from Max Crosby. And I think this is a stealth move that Ryan Poles can certainly get in there and do. And I'm telling you, Bears fans, that's the type of game changer. Go back to the Raiders like we did with Khalil Mack, and bring in a guy like Max Crosby. Max Crosby was not a highly touted draft pick. If anyone remembers, he was on Hard Knocks, and he was featured very early on for being absolutely relentless and tenacious, and he built himself into the player that he is now through hard work. And he deserves every penny that he gets, and he's really good. And we've seen Montez Sweat so far be double and triple teamed to this point. You put Max Crosby on the other side, and all of a sudden now, I think it might be a completely different ballgame. Because 3 weeks in a row now, the Chicago Bears offense has answered the call. We're starting to get an idea of what they're capable of, and I think they're starting to get an idea of what their identity is. I mean, this Bears defense, it's opportunistic. We got a great secondary. I love our linebackers. But again, we've had some gap fit problems with the running game. And let's be honest here, the sacks have been fine. Quarterback hits, though, the pressures, they probably should go up. If we're really serious about this one, if we really want to take down Jordan Love, if we really want to play a team like a San Francisco in the playoffs or something along those lines, I think Max Crosby is the move. That's my personal opinion. My final thought on the way out here, almost done here on Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos. You're listening here on WLS AM 890. Happy Saturday, Chicago. Follow us at Sports Talk Shy or follow me at Joey Sports Guy. My final thought here, my final little rant, I don't want to get onto it, but I was kind of thinking about it, is I got to be honest with you. You probably don't realize this about me. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. So when the Chicago Bears have a quarterback that we feel really great about, sometimes I'm one to go out and buy gear. So sue me. And when the quarterback is under center for the Chicago Bears, I tend to also root for that quarterback to either be successful or the Chicago Bears to win. So I'm going to be very transparent here. There's been a time when I have rooted for Justin Fields, supported Justin Fields, and I also, in turn, have bought a Justin Fields jersey. And my question out to the community and the audience is, when can I ever wear that jersey again? I mean, should I just throw that thing out now? Like, I feel like you could wear a Jay Cutler, you could wear a Mitch Trubisky jersey, but if you wear a Justin Fields jersey out in public right now, I think people are going to give you the side eye. And I think people are going to come up to you and be like, what, you don't support Caleb Williams? No, I support the Bears, and it's a cool jersey, so I'm wearing it. I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking, it's that much of a trigger for Bears fans right now, and it really kind of illuminates, and you still see it around right now. People either still trying to defend Justin or knock on Caleb. Guess what? Justin Fields is no longer on the team anymore. But I still own the gear. So my question is, when can I wear a Justin Fields jersey again? In like 10 years? And when I wear it, is it ironic? And let's be honest, is this really fair to the player? Justin Fields was fine. He was solid. We thought he could be better. The progress was a little bit slower than we all liked. I understand people got frustrated and people wanted to bail. But look, Justin Fields was a great teammate, an awesome leader, a really good dude, and gave us some of the funnest highlights that we've seen in a Bears uniform in easily the last 24 years. Easily this millennia, this century. So if I wore a Justin Fields jersey out in public, am I going to get screamed at? Are people going to start asking me questions of like, do you not like Caleb? Of course I like Caleb. I'm just wearing a Bears jersey. It's really not that big of a deal. But I was thinking about that. How long is it going to take? If the Bears won a Super Bowl in the next 5 years, could I then wear a Justin Fields jersey out there? Do I really have to wait maybe like 10 or 20 years and go all the way back? I promise you, if someone wore like a Rex Grossman jersey on right now, or a Mitch Trubisky or a Jay Cutler, it would not drum up any vitriol that a Justin Fields jersey out in the wild, the Chicago Wild, would drum up right now. And there's something weird and there's something wrong about that. And I think it has a lot to do with us as Bears fans. And just think about it for a second. It's a Bears jersey, right? It looks cool. It's a number 1 on there. But if I wore it out right now, I know somebody would say something. And we really need to do a little digging about what that's about. Because guess what? He ain't on the team anymore. And he's not going to be on the team tomorrow. And he's not going to be on the team next year. We have a quarterback. It's number 18, Caleb Williams. And his jersey is hanging right next to my Justin Fields jersey. I want to wear the 18. I'm behind the 18. I'm just asking maybe for my own peace of mind. This piece of clothing that's in my closet, can I ever wear it again? Or just in like the comfort of my own home? Or to like pick up what spilt chili on the ground. What do I do with it? I can't figure it out. But I do think that that's really funny that of all the jerseys right now that you're not allowed to wear in Chicago, you could literally wear any jersey you want to. But in Chicago, you cannot wear a Justin Fields jersey. I find that strange. Anyways, that's going to do it here for Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Follow us on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Sports Talk Chicago. Follow us on socials at Sports Talk Chi, at Joey Christopoulos. If you want to follow me on socials, I really appreciate it. You've been listening to WLS AM 890 on your Saturday. Sports Talk Chicago. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the listen. Have a wonderful week. We'll be back next week to talk more Bears and preview Bears versus Commanders. Have a wonderful week in Chicago. We'll talk to you soon.